Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dice on Ice. My name is Megan, and tonight it's super exciting. We are starting the first session of the Curse of Strahd campaign, which is kind of my first, well, I guess in a very long time, my first long-running campaign. So, as you can guess, I'm a little bit nervous, but we will we'll work through it. And I have these amazing players who will make up for everything. So we can get right into it, and then we will do introductions and all of that, well, I guess final remarks afterwards. So let's just jump right into it. Fel, you walk downstairs this grand staircase that you are not allowed to walk on because it is only for guests. But today is a very special day. Not many others are like this. This is when Morwen Daggerford, Duchess of Daggerford, is holding a dinner party. You've seen a few of these before in your life, but you were never allowed to be a part of them, always being told to go up into your room and sit away. As you walk downstairs, you can smell the savory scents of meat cooking, of just all of these cooking, and you can smell what kind of cleaning was done. The dustiness, the old was blown away by the windows being open and cracked to kind of hide the disheveled look of this house. You see that the cracks on the walls have been covered up by paintings. You can hear the busyness, the sounds of the servants talking and rushing around, and you hear the shrill voice of Morwen Daggerford as she directs, no, commands her army of servants. What is going through your head, and what are you doing as you walk down these stairs?
So Fel is, she's hearing her aunt's voice, and immediately, as she usually does whenever her aunt is in the immediate vicinity, she tries to move elsewhere. And so for a moment, she hesitates on the staircase she's not supposed to be on. But then she continues heading downstairs. She's heading towards sort of the downstairs library in this keep in the settlement of Daggerford, which is where she spends most of her time, just reading, going over different things, keeping to herself. If she sees any servants passing by, though, she would try and flag them down and just ask them what the occasion is, since, as is her wont, her aunt probably has not told her somewhat estranged niece exactly what is going on today.
Yeah, and you spot a scullery maid as she's hurrying around. Dirt smears her face. She is trying to do the last bits of planning and cleaning up before she herself makes herself disappear. Her name is Anne, and you've kind of formed this relationship with her, and she looks at you quite kindly. Oh, Miss Fel, how are you this evening?
And Fel would smile, her freckled face sort of pulling wide into this grin, and she says, "And you don't have to call me Miss anything. Just Fel is good enough for you and good enough for me." What? And she would look around, sort of look at the the servants running to and fro, and just sort of lean in and say, "What in the name of the gods is my aunt up to now? I can hear her screaming from the other room. What's happening? Some sort of gathering or some such?"
Well, she hasn't said much, but, I mean, of course, you know, servants talk, and apparently she's invited some guests for dinner.
What sort of guests?
Oh, nobody knows. no form of nobility or anything like that, though from how often for how much we've been cleaning, you'd think that they were. No, she said she finds them interesting.
Interesting.
Yes, she wouldn't say any more on it.
And Fel would pause for a moment, chewing on her lower lip, and then she would sort of hunker down so she's a little closer to Anne and just whisper quietly, "Does my father know about this? Does the Duke know that his sister is inviting strange people into the castle, into the keep?"
Well, I don't... I'm sure that she has told him, but, I mean, he is away, and maybe they didn't get there in time to tell him. Who knows with her?
And Felwood would snort at that remark about them not having time enough to tell the Duke of Daggerford. And she straightens up, smiles at Anne, and says, "Well, if anyone needs me, I'll be in the downstairs library reading and trying to drown out the sound of my aunt yelling at servants. Be careful, Anne, and stop by if you have a moment, I suppose." And then she's going to continue on her way.
And as you're walking, you hear the shrill voice of Morwen. "Thaleth! Thaleth!"
"It's Felitha, it's fucking Felitha." And then she would start heading in the direction of the voice.
And you can see Lady Morwen's back is to you as she's directing servants, for some reason, to rearrange chairs for some God knows arbitrary reason.
"Yes, Aunt Morwen, what is it exactly that you need? You seem to have things well in hand here."
"The guest will be arriving soon, and I would like you to greet him. I hope that is not too much for you."
She chuckles a little and says, "Do you mind telling me who exactly it is I'll be greeting? I thought I wasn't going to be involved in this. I didn't even know this was happening. We're just inviting strange people into the keep now."
"Not strangers, my dear. I've been watching them for a while, and you know how lonely I get, and they just, I don't know, piqued my interest. I can't even describe it, just this overwhelming feeling came over me, and, well, you know." And she's not even looking at you as she's busying herself with these different things.
And Fel just rolls her eyes, looking extremely skeptical, but also knowing that her aunt is definitely a different kind of animal from her father, the Duke. And she just sighs and says, "Very well, I'll stand in the foyer and wait for them to arrive. Do we know how many? Do we know when they're going to be here?"
"I believe there are going to be 6.
"It's quite a few."
"Well, yes, but we are going to have only the finest." And then at this point, she looks to you. You can see her steel eyes staring at you. Her eyes she shares with your father. They have the same eyes, cold, calculating. "You will behave yourself. Am I clear? You will only say what is proper for a lady of your rank to say."
And Fel would pause for a moment very distinctly, just enough so that her aunt has this moment of, "Do I really need to tell you again?" And then she would finally just incline her head and then actually dip into this very overly exaggerated, overly flowery, courtly bow and say, "Of course, Auntie dear, wouldn't want to shame the Daggerford family, so of course I will only say what is proper."
Morwen Daggerford smiles, but the smile doesn't reach her eyes as she hurries off somewhere else. We're going to jump quickly to Everchild and what you are coming up on this house. You have your invitation that you had received in hand. You and Gleowin are both walking together. Are you speaking What are you doing as you come up on this house?
From an outside perspective, you'd see Everchild 1/3 of the height of Gleowin. This small creature. Thick black hair. A young, fresh face. No shoes, for it is uncustomary for a person of halfling descent to wear shoes. And Everchild does not speak, but Gleowin can hear him say, "We are here."
And stalking behind behind Everchild, his shadow in more ways than one is Gleowin. She's a tall elven woman. You know she's elven from the porcelain color of her skin and the sharpness of her ears. Covering her face is a mask, likewise of porcelain, with almost no detail on it. Her hair shaved on the sides and styled into a long, violent mohawk. Her cloak, hoodless, black, and hanging off her back, this massive shape, is wrapped in leather over leather. As you speak in her head, Everchild, Gleowin doesn't say anything for a while. And then with an almost sing-song like whisper, she says behind you, "We are. Are you nervous?"
It was always a bit nerving to enter in the abode of someone else, for their rules may not be your own.
I am very familiar with that, my muse. But I would say this, these people are plain, frightfully plain. I believe that you are too good for them, that we should seek somewhere different.
Say no such things. The goodliness of me is not of your concern, nor is it as big as you make it to be.
And you get the sense that underneath her mask, she may be smiling, or she might be frowning, or she might not be making any facial expression at all. And she simply gives you a sing-song hum after what you say, which you've come to likely interpret as a kind of like affirmation she'll give you.
And so you make your way to the front entrance, to the door of this house. Do you knock? Do you walk in?
The door is closed, yes?
Yes.
Not a door. Everchild will reach up onto his little tippy toes and reach up as high as he can with a light thump halfway up the door.
Fel, you hear a tiny knock against the thick wooden door.
So Fel would sort of straighten. I imagine she's wearing this very fine doublet and these very fine like silk breeches and calfskin boots, maybe even a pair of calfskin gloves. If there are any colors associated with the Daggerford family, they would probably be those colors. And she would walk to the door, open it, revealing this sort of about 5.5 foot tall, slender girl, clearly of some kind of elvish descent because of the long pointed ears. She's sort of reddish brown hair, freckled face, and these pale green eyes. And she definitely, although she favors her elven blood, there's definitely a bit of a, she's slender, but there's a bit of a thickness to her that would suggest maybe she's not a full-blooded elf. As she looks down at this strange halfling and this masked figure, she would just stare from the halfling to the masked figure, then back to the halfling, then back to the masked figure, and say, "I guess you're here for my aunt's gathering? Welcome to the house of the family of Daggerford."
Everchild bows, but says nothing.
Gleowin bows as well, and when she bows, she says, "We are the Everchild and his shadow Gleowin. We thank you for your hospitality and invitation."
Don't thank
And
me,
Everchild,
thank my aunt.
Everchild bows in a certain way to show off the colors and symbols of the robes and cloaks he wears, and the little clasp that keeps it closed to denote the fact that he is of Lathander's faith.
And I imagine Fel, considering she is very well read, would recognize some of those symbols, maybe not all of them, and just say, "Oh, a priest of the Morning Lord. You bless and honor this house. Please come in." And she'll open the door a little wider to let both of them in.
Fel, you also know that recently Morwen has been, I wouldn't say obsessing, but definitely become very intense in her faith with Lythander. And and this has been going on for the past couple of weeks, and she has made daily trips to the Temple of Lythander in Daggerford.
And she hasn't always been so religiously devout. It just seems to have happened recently, you said?
Yeah, fairly recently. She always has kind of favored Lythander, but not as intensely as she has been over the last few weeks.
Gotcha. Yeah, so again, Fel would open the door and just sort of be thinking to herself how strange these two are, especially the masked figure who her eyes would linger on a little longer, just trying to figure out who this person is and what this person's relationship is to a priest of Lathander.
And as you both go in, going to jump to Eli. Eli, you come in a few minutes later. You approach the door of this house. You have an invitation in hand. What are you thinking, feeling?
The dwarven man that approaches the door is just a hair over 4 feet tall. Weather-worn skin, reddish brown beard, reddish brown hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. He wears ruddy brown leathers in the form of a sort of long jacket, leather breeches, boots. The pack that he carries on his back is not a traditional backpack or rucksack. It's actually a form of a wooden chest that has straps and latches all around it, and has been fashioned to a sort of ruck frame. And attached to it with straps are a variety of weapons in easy access: a crossbow, a warhammer, a unstrung longbow to one side. He wears a sword on his belt. As he approaches the door, he looks up to it and looks down the invitation and in his hand, and with eyes that are a sort of greenish gray. They've got that kind of stormy sea look and a bit of a distant look to them. I look up at the door, and then I look back over my shoulder at my traveling companion. Well, I suppose this is it. It's what this piece of paper here says.
And
You ready to go in?
Oscar is a large man, and he lumbers in, kind of ducking below the threshold, even if it fits his size. He looks to the dwarf and then to the paper, not trusting it. I do not belong here. What you say? This is a request?
Friend, I don't think I belong here any more than you do. But it seems that somebody wants us here. Now, I don't know the import of this piece of paper here, nor do I know the import of the folks that are in this place, but it's been well, it's been at least 2 or 3 10 days since we've been inside any kind of indoor place for a while. So, what do you say we head on in and just see what happens? But be on your guard.
When am I not?
This is true.
He takes and he picks at one ear, flicking some mud from it. His long tattered cloak is wind blown and has holes kind of ripped through it at odd angles. It looks like he's had it for 100 years or more. He kind of gathers together his big satchel, which has weird things sticking out of it, pieces of wood that are snapped off, a shovel, rope, chains. You even think there might be a sack full of bricks or stones at his waist. He gathers them up, trying to respectfully hold them as quietly as possible, as he seems to follow the dwarf if they go inside.
Vel, you hear another knock. Only minutes after the first.
Gotcha, and I feel like it was like just enough time for her to get slightly irritated by the delay, but then she hears a knock. She's like, right. And so she walks up to the door, opens it up, sees this second duo, this strange duo in front of the door, and she looks at you for a second, Eli, and then looks at the ruck frame on your back carrying your weapons, and it's like her pale green eyes, they just widen, and she is absolutely fascinated. She doesn't even say anything for like a solid couple of seconds, just looking at the way the warhammer is attached to the frame, the way the crossbow is kind of dangling from it, but it looks secure at the same time. You can tell she's obviously admiring the craftsmanship.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Yes, sorry.
The name's Eli Lancaster. This is my traveling companion, Oscar. And, and I will hand up to you the invitation. I do believe we were supposed to be here today, ma'am.
Right. She's going to take the invitation, and then, Megan, does it say anything unusual beyond just come to the family Daggerford's home for a meeting of some kind? Is there anything unusual that would sort of make her suspicious or a little paranoid about her aunt's motives more than she already is?
It's very finely scripted, using many large, illustrious words about how she wants to honor them for their achievements, and she wants to reward them. And the dinner is mentioned, but the reward is not.
And she would look up at Oscar and just say, "If you don't mind me asking, large one, what exactly are you?"
What am I?
Mm-hmm.
What is this question?
So I'm a half elf, right? My father is human, and my mother supposedly was a high elf. Your friend here is clearly a dwarf of some kind. I don't think I've seen one of your kind before, though.
I am from the mountains, but I traveled far to the south. I am a rock man. No. Goliath, they say.
Huh. A dwarf and a rock man. Sounds appropriate. Welcome to the house of the family of Daggerford. Please come in. And she kind of looks down at Oscar's boots for a moment, which I imagine are just caked with mud if he's even wearing shoes.
They are threadbare and terrible looking.
Gotcha. And she starts to say something, and then she realizes it'll probably piss her aunt off, so she's like, "Just come right on in. You don't even have to worry about wiping your shoes." And she pushes the door open a little wider to let them both in.
Ma'am.
So you two walk in to some sort of foyer. You can see, for those who care to notice, you can see that a lot of work has been done to make this place look up to date, to look noble, to look fine, but the minute details have been missed. Small stains on a once very luxurious carpet. You can see that this place was once blue. It used blue colors as the major kind of color, because that is the color of the Daggerfords, is this royal blue. But recently, Morwen has gone through this redecorating where she has hastily replaced a lot of these blue with reds and purples and golds. And the work looks very sloppily done. You can see that they tried to paint things over, to put tapestries over the things that they couldn't, but you can see the old color. In some cases, it bleeds right through the paint, and in other cases, you can see it peeking out from behind a purple and gold tapestry. What catches your eyes is a very, very large painting above a fireplace, and it is of a horse being slaughtered by dogs. The reds, they are so deep. You could imagine that the painting is almost bleeding as you look upon it. And soon the four of you see a figure approach. She's tall, she's slender. She shares almost nothing, no similarities with Fel. She looks very rigid, raven black hair. She greets you all with a warm smile, but her eyes remain cold and icy. Ah! Welcome! Oh, there's only 4 of you. I believe we're waiting for 2 more. But in the meantime, please come and sit. I have so many things I want to know about you. And she would go up to each one of you, greet you warmly with an outstretched hand. Do you all take it? Do you all shake her hand? Do you all look at her in the eyes as she comes and greets you?
Everchild does so. In his tiny little hands, her hands would seem like the hands of a giant, but nonetheless.
She looks at you with particular warmth, and her eyes actually seem to brighten when she sees you. Oh my! I have heard so much about you. I am so pleased that you were able to join us. And she is just holding your small hand in both of hers, one on top of the other.
He places his free hand upon his chest over his heart and gives a little nod, a bow, closing his eyes and giving a nice warm smile.
I can feel the light of Lythander in this place already. And she comes to you, Eli, and you almost see this kind of sly smirk come over her face as she shakes your hand. And you, Eli, I've heard so much about you.
Eli, as she approaches, seeing that she's shaking hands, hastily grabs a handkerchief from one of his pockets and kind of wipes at his hands just to wipe off any road grime. Very much aware of himself in this environment. And He takes her hand, his hand a thick and calloused dwarven hand, holding her hand delicately for fear of breaking it. But like he does with everyone that he meets, he meets her gaze head on. He stares, or rather looks anyone that he's talking to or meeting in the eyes. And when she says this, pardon me, ma'am, I'm not really sure what it is you may have heard about me, but more than likely they are elaborations and exaggerations. I am a man of no remarkable, no remark, ma'am, if you take my meaning.
Ah. So you are humble. They didn't tell me that. But I'm sure I will get to know much more about you as this dinner progresses. And you hear another knock at the door, Fel. And if you were to
Okay.
do you open it? Sorry.
Yeah, she would go over and open it. Is her aunt having this conversation like right in the foyer area, or have they moved a little further into the house?
Just in kind of it's more of like a receiving room kind of thing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they're in there.
So as she's walking up to the door, she would just be muttering to herself, "Oh, they didn't tell me you were humble. Oh my goodness!" And then she would go ahead and open the door to whoever was knocking outside.
You see two figures. Well, at first you only see one. Very large man. And he comes in and he claps his hand on your shoulder. Well, hello there. I am Tane Vander. This must be the Daggerford house. I've heard so much about it. And he just kind of barrels right in.
Yes, come on in, please. Yes, all right. She'd look to the other person, if there is another person.
Yes, behind him, you couldn't have seen her. She is so tiny. A small human girl. I'm sorry for my father. He can be a bit rash. I'm Valentina.
It's nice to meet you, Valentina. I'm Felitha, and you are, of course, welcome into the house of the Daggerford family. And don't worry, we all have. And she smiles this sort of sad, but at the same time proud smile. All our parents have their own quirks and everything. Come on in, and she'll let the younger girl in.
And she comes in. You can already hear the sound of Tane just filling the room as he hastily greets you all, but never really looking at you or never really waiting for a response from you. Lady Daggerford, or Duchess Daggerford, well, now that you are here, we can all sit down and have something to eat. If you will please follow me. And she leads you all into another room where you can see that there is this elaborate table set up with fine china and various centerpieces filled with beautiful flowers. It's getting to the end of the season, and so the flowers are these luscious reds and oranges and yellows, and a blood red runner runs across the table underneath the flowers. She comes in. Will you please sit? Oh, for God's sake, sit down! If you please.
A hand will appear from underneath Gleowin's cloak. left hand. The fingernails all painted black, and the back of the hand goes to the back of your head, Everchild, as if like trying to like cover your ears from the screaming. And then she's just going to angle you to a chair and have you sit there and sit down beside you.
And Everchild climbs up onto a chair and then seats himself with his feet dangling a good few inches off the ground, and his eyes and his forehead barely visible.
And then she will take the massive black thing on her back, still wrapped up, and then put it beside the chair that she's sitting in, and then just sit beside him, very straight, very calm, very quiet.
I will take a seat at the table across from Everchild and Lewin, and I'm going to draw out the chair and kind of shrug out of my ruck and place it on the ground next to the chair, where it sort of serves as a step for me to step up in a slightly more dignified way, take a seat, and also keep my pack nearby. And then there's this slightly awkward moment as I grab the under edge of what I imagine this is a very heavy table, as I just take the table edge and kind of try to just pull my chair a little bit closer since I can't really scooch it.
Fel and Oscar, do you take a seat?
Was Fel brought in with the rest, or was she?
Yes, yeah, she was.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think she would have sort of jolted a little bit when her aunt just randomly shouted. But she would walk over to sit on Eli's left, just kind of pull a chair out and sort of slump into it. Not because she's lazy or anything, but she's just sort of confused and irritated that she has to be a part of this when she was heading to the library. But she kind of keeps moving her gaze from one person at the table to the next, trying to figure out what her aunt could possibly be intending, bringing all of these strange people together in one place.
Oscar steps to the table nervously. Obviously, he's the size of a person who could stare down a bear, but in social situations, he is at odds. He takes the giant sack of travel goods that he has, and unlike Eli, sort of drops them unceremoniously to the floor in a clatter of stone and chain. He takes a chair, looking around at first to see if one is larger, and of course they are probably not in such a fine dining situation. He awkwardly kind of droops one leg over an arm to try and seat himself, and is probably more used to sitting on the earth itself or perhaps a stool. But eventually he does kind of make his way into the chair, his gangly long arms just sort of leaning out over the table, trying to stay as low as possible and looking to the others. His sea green eyes are kind of searching, looking at everyone. And he does look like he has relaxed slightly from earlier because he did not have to shake hands with the lady of the house. That, at least, is something that he could be thankful for.
And Duchess Morrowind, she sits, and there's a small bell beside her, and she picks it up, she rings it, and immediately 5 servants come rushing out from all these doors, and they carry with them steaming plates and platters, and immediately the smells hit you. This hearty, spicy soup, the smell of meats, the smell of something sweet. All of these spices kind of come together and hit you. Some of you may have been traveling for a while, and so this smell is just so intoxicating. And they immediately begin to serve you all the first course, which is this spicy tomato soup. Please, I'm sure you all are famished. We'll get into everything once, we've had a chance to sit down and enjoyed ourselves a little bit. So please. And, Tane. Well, I know I can't eat anything until I get a really big glass of ale, am I right? And he's gonna look at someone. I think it's gonna be Oscar. He looks to you and kind of smirks.
Oscar sneers at first, unintentionally, and then clears his face. I do not drink anymore. Good, yes.
You can see that Tane is kind of taken aback, and he just kind of, his beard just kind of ruffles for a second, and he... Well, I'll have enough for the both of us then. And he gestures to his servant. Once you guys have been eating for a while, the soup is absolutely delicious. It, rings all the right notes that you would ever want from a soup like this. It is hot, it is spicy, it's filling. And for a while, do you guys talk with each other, or is it in silence? Duchess Morwen doesn't seem to be saying anything, but she doesn't seem to be eating either. Just looking at each of you with this curiosity.
Oscar would,
Sorry, go
if
ahead.
possible, Oscar would lean over to Eli, the only person he knows in the room. What did they expect of us? His voice is low. Where I am from, you do not get food for free. You pay for it. You earn your keep. What is this?
Well, Oscar, I can't rightly say that I know what the intentions are, but what I do know is we are getting a hot meal right now. I'm fairly certain we're going to be put to some kind of work, but I find in these situations it's best to just keep your mouth shut, keep your eyes open, and listen.
Oscar will push some of his dark strands of hair away from his face, which always seem to cling to the forehead moistly, even if it's dry. Yes, work I know. Work is good. These rugs, they're too fine. Yeah. And he'll reach out and grab a fistful of food and start eating it.
Gleowin, who is eerily silent, takes a single spoon, takes a dip out of the Eva child's soup and not her own, and then gently lifts the lower half of her mask, which kind of snaps open. Not enough so you can see underneath, but enough that she could put the spoon under, take a sip, and then put his spoon back into his own bowl. She lowers it, waits a moment, and then she whispers to him, "It is good."
And to those watching would notice that she stole the spoon from him just as he was about to reach for it, kind of like snatched it from his grasp. And he just has a look, no expression upon his face as he just kind of waits for this horrible year to be done. And then after she set it back into the bowl, he goes to reach for it again, pauses with the fingers hovering over the spoon just for a moment, and then begins to eat.
She notices his pause, ignores it, and then she doesn't eat anything else for the rest of the meal. She just kind of copies what Morwen is doing and is just looking around the table at everybody.
I think Fel, having kind of overheard Oscar and Eli's conversation just a little bit, would just lean over to both of them and say, the rugs aren't really that fine. There's much nicer ones in the library. Don't worry about it. And then she's actually going to move her bowl, which is mostly untouched, over to you, Eli. And she just says, they served this last night. Honestly, I'm sick of the taste of tomatoes.
Certainly, ma'am. Much obliged. And
You're welcome. You can call me Fel, though. There's no need for ma'am here. Or anywhere, really.
fella, ma'am.
Fel. Just F-E-L. Easier to remember.
Pardon me, Fail.
Thank you.
Oscar will lean in, keeping his voice low again.
Mm-hmm.
Fel is a good name.
Thank
Three
you.
letters. 3.
3.
F-E-L. Is much cheaper for gravestone. I like it.
And Fel would kind of look at Oscar for a moment and say, I like you. And then she would go ahead and just sit back, and she actually sits up a little straighter. She's like, these people are actually kind of interesting. Just kind of watching everybody.
Eli's already, as Oscar's saying this, already has the bowl kind of tipped up and is drinking the soup out of the bowl, pausing just for a moment. He said the same thing to me when I told him my name was Eli.
I like people with short names.
Interesting.
And Eli, you think you may have been the first person to finish their soup as you just, slobber it all down. And then you look over and you see Everchild with an empty bowl.
To be fair, I was on my second bowl.
But Everchild sits silently, quietly. There's no smugness to his face, just humility.
Gleowin markedly does not offer her bowl to the Everchild, even though she does not touch it.
Tane is busy talking away at Duchess Daggerford. She pays him little to no mind. Just brief nods of idle interest. And then she interrupts him. I see. You guys are all done with your first course. Shall we go to the second? She rings the bell again. And they take this soup. Servants come, they take the soup away. And they come back. And you can see their 2 servants have to come in with this whole roasted pig that they set into right in the center. They actually have to move the flowers and the centerpieces to be able to set it down. I hope that everyone likes pork. I believe it will be to everyone's liking. And now, as you are being served, I guess I owe you all an explanation. I invited you here for selfish reasons, I'm afraid. And I do apologize if any of you have been put out by coming here, and I do very much appreciate you all. But, and she takes in a breath, and all of a sudden, the doors open, and in walks a guard. He has this worried look on his face, and you immediately see Morrowind's face go from pleasantry to rage as she looks. And the closest people to Morrowind hear her hiss under her breath. What is it? And the guard whispers into her ear. And she's looking at the rest of you as the guard is doing this, and you can see her face turn dark, then emotionless, as she ever so slightly nods her head. I see. I will get it dealt with immediately. And as the guard leaves, she looks to the rest of you. I am very, very sorry for my rudeness. It's just that there is a problem that we have in the city right now. A group has placed themselves at the north entrance to Daggerford. And they've been there for the past few days, and they refuse to leave. They've begun to bother everyone in Daggerford, begging them for money and threatening to put hexes on them if they do not. It appears as though I had just sent some guards to deal with them, but they came back saying they weren't that bad. Of course, you might have seen the guards have been a little light as of late, and now I'm sure you can guess why. I am terribly, terribly, terribly sorry. And she just kind of shakes her head, puts her hands in her head. No, sorry, puts her head in her hands. And she just rests there. And Tane speaks up. You can see that he has drunk more than he has eaten in this case. And he's a little louder than before. We'll take care of it, Duchess Daggerford, won't we? And he looks kind of jovially towards the rest. It's the least we can do for you, supplying us with such a meal.
No.
I agree. The blade itself incites one to deeds of violence, Aunt. Maybe if you hadn't tried to drive them away with your guards and your swords and your spears, they wouldn't be so persistent. Maybe we should just give them some food and some coin and see them on their way. That's what the Duke would do.
Do not tell me what the Duke would do! I know what he would do! He is my brother!
And Fel would sort of sit back at that, a little surprised, because I imagine, although their relationship isn't great, that at least when they were discussing the Duke, they would keep things civil, so this outburst is a little unexpected.
His absence has put a strain on me, I'm afraid. So I must apologize. I have been a little out of sorts lately. I do appreciate you all coming here, though. And I do not expect you to do anything. I will figure something else out.
Ma'am, if you'll pardon my my abruptness, being rather forward in inquiring, there was mention of hexes from these individuals that are harrying the north end of your city. Did my ears hear that correctly?
Yes, they threaten hexes. Who knows whether their crazy antics are true or if they're just trying to scare them, but yes, that is what my people have been telling me.
Am I to believe then that your city is being threatened by some sort of witches or warlocks or something? Is this a threat of an evil nature? Is what I'm getting at, ma'am.
Well, if you call being a nuisance and threatening my poor innocent people, then yes. Yes, I would say that is evil. There are women and children, and they're just being obstinate. I don't... Just see if they will leave. I just want them to leave.
Ma'am, I'm inclined to acquiesce to your request. Mr. Oscar, I wonder if you might accompany me as well.
He leans in, dropping the silverware as he'd been just enthralled in his food, gorging himself if allowed. What is Aquest?
Sorry, my friend. What I meant to say is that I am inclined to take the Duchess up on her request to at least investigate this threat of which she speaks. Perhaps more just to satisfy my own curiosity as to the nature of these supposed invaders or whatever they may be. But I would just as soon not go alone as well. Though, should you wish to continue to retire here and indulge yourself in the fine offerings of the Duchess, I would not hold any ill will toward you for that.
I am of working age. I will not retire yet. I shall go with you, perhaps. But I do not fight. I will stand there and look mean or something. You will do the talk.
Yeah, you do that quite well, my friend. I don't know if anyone else is wanting to accompany, but I figure what harm can there be in at least taking a look at what might be out there. And at this point, I'm already starting to step down from my chair and shrug into my ruck and adjust the straps. And
When you hear Everchild say to you, "Only a troubled man seeks violence." As Everchild begins to kind of like begin to climb off his chair as some kind of great effort.
Knowing now that the Everchild's curiosity has been piqued by whatever nonsense is being belligerent with the rest of these people, Gleowin, who's been still sitting silently, sits there for a moment longer, and then the moment that the Everchild is on the ground, she was already up and behind him, and again, not speaking, not staring at anybody, just being silent as always.
Everchild continues, "And a troubled man is one who seeks the light of Lathander, or needs it. I will go."
She then repeats those same words directly to Morwen.
You see a smile, genuine, come across Morwen's face. She nods. Your kindness. You all are everything I hoped you would be. Thank you. Thank you so much. And once you return, we can continue with our conversation, and we will keep everything warm for you, and if it's cold when you get back, we will slaughter a new pig. Fel, you will go with them. Show them the north entrance. Do not speak back to me, girl.
Of course.
Tane goes to stand. I will also come with you, but as he stands, he kind of trips, stumbles on his chair. Valentina, who had just been this quiet shadow, barely even noticeable, runs to his side. It's all the same to you, Duchess. We might want to sit this one out. It appears my father and I should be leaving, and you can see her face is just bright red with embarrassment. Tane is protesting, but his words only come out in mumbled slurs. Duchess Morwen just shakes her head dismissively. I'm sure that 4 will be 5, with Veleth, I suppose, will be more than enough. Now, again, thank you. And I'm sure all the people of Daggerford will thank you as well.
Right. I have to retrieve some things just in case. But if you all want to head outside, I'll meet you out there. I just want a moment. And then she looks slowly over to her aunt. Just a moment with my aunt.
Morwen raises an eyebrow at you, but with a quick smile to the rest of you, we shall just be a moment. She follows you, Phil.
I'm already heading outside to await the others.
Oscar will follow the dwarf, shouldering his pack full of random items, and he begins pulling out planks and chain and wrapping them about one of his arms, looking to Eli as they're headed out. Do not fight. Fighting is bad. Fighting, I wake up, my head hurts. People, blood. No, I do not fight. But he hefts this big thing of boards and chains on one arm. Maybe I put this up. Arrows, block.
Well, my friend, you certainly do look like somebody who would be quite effective at blocking arrows. I will gladly allow you to form a sort of barricade in front of me should it come to it.
Yes.
Are the rest of you guys gonna leave?
Yeah. Everchild and Gleowin, do you...
The pitter-patter of Everchild's thickened, calloused feet against the hardwood floor and the small strides of a halfling echo their way around this large, mansion as he makes his way on his own accord.
Gleowin, shouldering her own package, she stands there for a second, and her head just slowly turns to you, Fel, and then again to Morwen. And it's like a beat too long as she's there staring at her, and then she just glides after the Everchild.
Once the door closes behind you four, Morwen turns to Fel. Well, what is it?
And I think Fel would she would stand, her knuckles a little white as she kind of grips the edge of the table, and she would just say, I understand that things have been difficult since Father went away. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But I need to make something perfectly clear to you. And this is probably the first time that she's, even though it's in private, that she has actually stood up in this way, and she looks pointedly at her aunt and just says, you are not the only noble in Daggerford, and you would do well to remember that when snapping at people and when inviting these random people into our city, into our homes. I know that some people say that you're a better ruler than my father, but considering the conversation we just had at this table, I doubt it very much.
Morwen is upon you, Fel, before you can even blink. And you feel this sharp pain across your cheek as she slaps you. She gets so close to you that you can smell the sweet mint and the decay from her teeth and gums kind of intermixing together. You listen to me, child. You are here by nothing more than my good graces, and don't you ever forget it. Yes, your father is the Duke, but don't forget that I am his sister. And don't forget that he trusts me completely. And if you were to say, I don't know, go missing because your head was in the clouds somewhere and you just wandered off one night, don't you for a second think that he wouldn't believe his dear, dear sister So you should remember your place, Fel. When you are in this household. Do I make myself clear?
I think, again, for the second time this night, Fel is just so stunned by this that, one, that it got this bad, but two, that her aunt has been so open about this. And a small part of her realizes that what she's saying is absolutely true. I mean, Fel has not a bad reputation, but a reputation for being a little strange, a little odd, as well as the fact that her mother is not present, this supposed high elven woman that slept with the Duke of Daggerford. So she just nods, not even moving anything, just her head just nodding. And then she would straighten up and just walk out of the room as quickly as possible, her cheeks still stinging a little bit. And she would head to just get, a couple of simple armaments just in case to protect herself if things go south.
And when you return back to the room to head out, you see that Duchess Daggerford is gone. She is nowhere to be seen. So do you head out the door?
Yes. So I think after taking a moment to kind of compose herself, maybe even checking, and I don't know if the wood of the door is polished enough just to see if there's a red mark on her face, and there probably is, but it's fading, I'd imagine, by now. She sort of straightens her doublet and is like, right, fucking bitch. And then she opens the door and greets the others and just says, so we're heading north. It would be that way. She points north after all of you. And let's, and she glances over her shoulder. Contrary to what my aunt might have implied, I think maybe we try and keep the violence and bloodshed to a minimum, if possible. And then she would wait for the others to go.
And I think that is where we're going to take a short break, as we are going to continue on after. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you to my wonderful players, and we will be right back. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, okay. Oh, I can hear myself. That's not cool. I don't like that. All right, there we go. Fixed. So, as you make your way through the town, being led by Fel, you see that evening is coming. The sun is setting. And as you look, you see that it is the most beautiful sunset you have ever seen. Purples, pinks, reds reflect off of the clouds. The sun that's setting is a beautiful orange crimson color. It sets this. It sets the twilight over the city. And as evening grows, you leave the gates of the northern part of Daggerford, and you see a dozen men and women gathered around a crackling bonfire not too far from the city entrance. They seem to be in good spirits. A few of them sing and dance around the fire, while others find their happiness in their flasks and wineskins. 3 barrel-topped wagons are parked at odd angles, and tied to a nearby tree, grazing, are 6 draft horses. And they are, like their owners, are decorated in bright coats with bangles and tassels. You can hear the sound of these people singing, though the language is unknown to all of you. There is tambourine music, and they seem unconcerned with the world around them. Who approaches first, and who would speak first? Do you try and get the attention of these people?
First thing, as we approach this area, I turn to Fel. With all due respect, Fel.
Fel, there we go.
With all due respect, that's your aunt back there, the Duchess.
Yes.
She's got a fairly large stick up her ass.
And Fel actually just grins as soon as you say this just big grin that almost takes in her pointy ears, and she says, "Abso-fucking-lutely," and she wants to beat everyone she meets with it.
I'm not normally one to speak my mind in that way
or often
of others, but just look at these people. This is what she considers to be a hindrance and a threat to the city.
I absolutely agree.
I'm from simpler area, simple farming communities down further south. Come down from around the greenest area by way of Burdusk, and it's not at all uncommon to see country folk carrying on in such a manner at times of harvest, or well, quite frankly, anytime there's reason to celebrate. And
absolutely,
that's what this appears to be. Revelers, they do have a bit of an appearance of outsiders, but I'm getting the sense that whatever reports your aunt has had have been a bit exaggerated.
And Fel would look over at the revelers for a moment, listening to the tambourine, and then she would just say, not looking at you, Eli, "My aunt wants to make Daggerford some sort of fortified military encampment where we are always afraid and always pointing weapons out at everything else. And my father wouldn't want that. I certainly don't want that. I'm not surprised that, as you said, the reports were a little exaggerated. I'm not saying we shouldn't protect ourselves, but these people don't seem dangerous, though." And she listens for a moment. Megan, does the language sound like anything? I know you said that it's not one that we recognize, but like, does it have its roots in Elvish, Dwarvish, Common, or anything like that that we can tell, or Halfling for that matter?
It has the fluidness and the elegance of Elven, but the throaty richness of Dwarven. It just seems to be this musical conglomeration of a bunch of different languages. Kind of, you wouldn't think they would come together, but they do. And it's very harmonious. It's almost like a romantic language, how it just flows very easily.
We should talk to them. Let's just go talk to them and see if maybe they can stay in a forested area nearby. Maybe we can send some supplies out their way if we have any to spare, but I don't think there's any threat here.
Oskar steps up and he looks towards the revelers and then back towards Fel. This is the problem. Tell them there is no more ale in the town. Tell them there is a festival down the road. They will leave. I tell you, this has happened before.
We can certainly try, Rockman. We can certainly try.
I'm inclined to take a more direct approach with them and just kind of get to know them and see what their intent is. I'd rather not resort to deceiving them, lest we portray ourselves in a way that might cause them some agitation. However, I realize I'm speaking my opinion, and Fel is in agreement, and Oscar seems to be of an accord. But what of you two? You seem to be here with us, but the two of you are very, well, you're much more
Interesting.
stingy with your words than even I am, per usual. I find myself in an odd place being the one doing most of the talking.
And you see that Everchild is not even facing you when you speak. No, Everchild is looking in the opposite direction, looking at the setting sun. He's standing there, still motionless. His hands are clasped together over his chest, holding at something around his neck, but you cannot see it in his small, tiny little eyes. And he stares and witnesses the sunset.
And Gleowin is a shadow behind him, and she actually turns towards you as you're speaking, Eli. And she says to you, he is praying right now, but we are in agreement. Talking to them, getting to know them, understanding them. Wise, he would say, and I would also.
At the mention that the halfling is in prayer, you might notice Eli give a slightly, almost perturbed look in his direction and a little bit of a derisive snort. Well, at any rate, I think we should head over and introduce ourselves. And I will do so. I will begin to approach.
A heavy hand falls on Eli's shoulder quickly. Oskar's stone gray skin is kind of just sort of lit in this light as it fades. And he whispers, "Be careful you do not find colored beads in your beard and holes in your pockets. Do not be too friendly."
I appreciate the words of warning, friend. And I will continue my approach, keeping my hands just sort of casually away from, in clear view, just as in a casual manner, sort of simultaneously ready to draw if necessary, but also showing that I have no weapons in my hands, despite the fact that there are multiple weapons visible on my back. As I'm just going to approach so that I'm moving into, knowing that when you're reveling around a fire, you can only see so far beyond the firelight. So I'm moving into that area of the firelight proper so that hopefully somebody will notice, maybe even just kind of deliberately scuffing my boots on the ground and giving a bit of a
There is a young girl who is dancing and laughing, and she is the one who is closest to you, and she looks back at you. She doesn't look shocked, but she hurriedly runs over to a man who is sitting on a few crates, watching over the fire. He is very large, broad-shouldered, with blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. And when the girl speaks to him, a smile runs across his face, and he looks towards you, Eli, and he stands. Ah, hello, friend. Have you come to join us?
Well, we come to see what all the commotion was about. And it seems as though y'all are having a bit of a party here.
This is just one of our nights. We always celebrate. We celebrate life. We celebrate nature. And he kind of throws his hands up into the air. There's a ton of bangles on his arms and forearms, and when he throws them up, they make this jangling noise as they fall down. But why have you come? And he looks behind you, and even though it is dark, how far away are the rest of you from the camp?
Not very far. I imagine that Fell kind of followed a little in Eli's wake, but let him step forward into the firelight to do the talking.
And Everchild had just finished up his prayer, a long ceremony involving the lighting of candles around him as the sun finally sets, and then one by one extinguishes them all, packs them up, and then looks around to see where everyone had gone and realize that he's just alone with Gleowin. Where have they gone?
And Gleowin will reach down a hand, almost for him to take it, but then if you were to reach for it, of course, it would disappear. And she begins to glide slowly towards the firelight, waiting for you to walk ahead of her.
And he does so. So we soon catch up from behind, but we're a bit far off.
So the man kind of looks... Sorry, Oscar, how far away are you?
A stride or two behind Eli. He'll be close enough to watch over the dwarf and perhaps Fell, but not so close as to be surrounded or in close contact with the others.
Right, but yeah, and the man still kind of looks behind Eli. You have friends, I see. And he smiles.
Well, that's true. If I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, mister, we did come out here with the intention of seeing what it was exactly that you were up to, having it on informed authority that there were some ne'er-do-wells up to no good out here. Though my eyes clearly see that you are some individuals enjoying themselves, enjoying their evening, and I do not see, well, I don't really see anything that poses any sort of threat, per se.
Let me guess, this good Thord you speak of, was it Lady Morrowind?
Well, it does appear as though her reputation precedes her. Now, I'm not going to claim to be any particular ally of the Duchess, having only just met her myself within the last few hours. But that is how we happen to be here, myself and my companions.
Well, let us introduce ourselves so at least we are on the same level as Lady Morwen with you. I am Stanimir. That over there, and he points to the girl who had seen you first. That is my daughter, Damia. And we are but simple travelers, merchants, just wandering through, and I guess as you have seen, not many people understand our way of living. But please, all of you, come into the firelight so we all may see you better. Come, have some wine.
Stanimir, was it? My name is Eli Lancaster. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. And I will step into the fire and come in closer and kind of actually turn a little sideways to kind of look back at my companions, and still holding a slight bit. At this point, I'm resting like thumbs on my sword belt, one hand just gently resting, not in any kind of threatening way, but just in that way, you'd rest on your hilt of your sword, hands on the hips kind of thing. Still maintaining that slightly ready for anything posture.
Fel would approach definitely once she sees Eli looking back at her and Oscar and the Everchild and Gilliwin, and she would smile at Stanimir and his daughter and just say, "This looks like you're having a wonderful time. I think I'll take a little bit of that wine. It's got to be better than the swill they serve in the house." And she looks around for anyone offering a wineskin.
Yeah, you can see that Stanimir looks to his daughter, who immediately goes to filling these skins full of wine from these barrels. Well, I don't expect these will be as good as the Duchess, but we make it ourselves, so it is made with love.
You'd be surprised, and Fel will take the offered wineskin and kind of raise it up and say, "My name is Fel, or Felitha Daggerford, but just call me Fel. It's easier that way. I'm the Duke's daughter, I suppose." And then she takes a little sip from the wineskin.
And the wine is very good. It's sweetish, not too dry, with some flowery notes in it. It almost tastes like if you were to take their culture and put it into a wine. It's just very upbeat and flowery and very robust.
And I think Fel would definitely, after she takes a little sip, kind of look at the skin, look at Stanimir, and just say, "This is fantastic. This is much better than anything that Morwen puts on her table. You should be very proud of this." And then she takes another drink.
And who are the rest of you?
Oscar will move forward with the dwarf, watching Eli carefully along with the others. But once Fel has accepted the wine and moved in closer, he will relax some, lowering himself, his shoulders kind of slumping a bit as he gazes around. Somewhat suspiciously, he looks towards the livestock and then over towards their carts. And speaking unceremoniously, without even giving his name, "What do you sell?"
Ah, I see you are not one for small talk. Well, for one, we sell our, and he gestures to the wine that Fel is drinking. And, well, we also sell a few trinkets we find along the way, stuff we find that is beautiful, that is lovely. And we just want to sell it to the rest of the people.
He unintentionally sneers again, much like he had at the dinner table, not knowing his manners. Ugh. No, nothing shiny, no. If you want small talk, speak to them. And over his shoulder, he kind of motions towards the halfling and the Shadow Kai. They have little words, very few. And Oscar will move around to look at the livestock in their carts, kind of just inspecting them casually.
And Stanimir would step to the side with a smile and let you just peruse. And he turns to Everchild and Gleomore.
Gleowin, she says, and she moves a hand across her mask, and then both of her hands go back to the back of Everchild's head, and she says, Everchild.
And I nod.
Well, it is very nice to meet all of you. You have given us a welcome that is better than we have received before, so how about this? So everyone can be happy, and you can go tell Lady Morwen that we do not want to make enemies with her. But first, may I tell you a story? Just one, and then we will leave and you can go back and resume whatever you are doing. You see, we're storytellers. It is in our blood, it is in our life, and we want to share this with all others. So please, since you have shown us such kindness, will you indulge me?
Well, I can't speak for my companions other than perhaps Oscar, who I've shared the road with for some time. But I find that stories are the currency of the travelers. And it is a trade I am oft and happy to indulge in. Many a night have I spent sitting around the fire, sharing stories whilst on the road, so I will gladly hear the tale you have to tell, Stanimir, and I will pull up one of the casks or barrels or something that's maybe a little bit smaller to make myself a bit more comfortable.
Oscar will grunt in affirmation from across the camp.
I think that means yes, and then Fel will kind of perch herself next to Eli's barrel, just sitting on the ground, cross-legged, and sipping from the wineskin every now and again.
Glewin hears sharing of companionship is a well sought thing in times of hardship. The more we know about them, the more we know of how far outwards the lady's swords point.
And then you hear, as is everyone else actually, this sing-song hum come in response, which only you would know, Elder Child, as her affirmation. I imagine both of us probably just stay standing up by the fire.
As you watch the fire, you become fixated on it. Its movement, it almost seems to dance as Stanimir retakes his seat on the crates. Stanimir quickly takes a skin of wine. He fills his mouth with it and spits into the fire. The flames turn from the regular orange to a green. And as they dance and sway, you can swear that you can see a dark shape begin to take form into the bonfire, in the middle of the bonfire. We come from an ancient land whose name is long forgotten, a land of kings. Our enemies forced us from our homes, and now we wander the lost roads. The dark shape in the fire takes the form of a man being knocked from his horse, a spear piercing his side. Stanimir continues. One night, a wounded soldier staggered into our camp and collapsed. We nursed his terrible injury and quenched his thirst with wine. He survived. When we asked him who he was, he wouldn't say. All he wanted was to return home. But we were deep in the land of his enemies, and we took him as our own and followed him back to his homeland. But his enemies hunted him. They said he was a prince. Yet we didn't give him up, even when their assassins fell upon us like wolves. Deep in the bonfire, you see the dark figure standing with sword drawn, fighting off a host of shadowy shapes. This man of royal blood fought to protect us. As we protected him, we bore him safely to his home, and he thanked us. He said, I owe you my life. Stay as long as you wish. Leave when you choose. And know that you will always be safe here. The figure in the dancing fire vanquishes its final foe, then disperses in a cloud of smoke and embers. All of you fixated on this fire, on this figure, can feel your eyes begin to grow heavy. They begin to slowly close. You begin to feel comfortable in the warmth of the fire and the steady rhythm of Stanimir's voice. But then what he says next kind of reawakens you, perks you up a bit. This is more than a story, I'm afraid. But it is a request. A curse has befallen our noble prince, turning him into a tyrant. We alone have the power to leave his domain, and we've traveled far and wide to find heroes, such as yourselves, to end our dread lord's curse and put his troubled soul to rest. Our leader, Madame Eva, knows all. Will you return to Barovia with us and speak with her? He's looking at all of you with a somber mask, his face filled with sorrow.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
That's it. Gleowin just gives a very soft-spoken no.
Eli kind of stretches and trying to shrug off the effects. Well, that's quite a fascinating tale you've told there, and I'm gonna have to claim a bit of ignorance. And I'll admit I'm not exactly the most well-traveled of dwarves, but I have never heard of this Barovia of which you speak. And I'm just kind of looking around at the others for, like, I don't know, have you guys heard of this place?
Would Fell have stumbled upon any mentions of this in the library at all, in the castle or in the house, or has she ever heard of this place before?
Roll me a history check.
Ooh, first roll of the night. I also have a +2 in history. I rolled a 14 total.
The way this person is speaking, you feel like you have read something of this place. It has some importance in some of the history books that you have read. But anything that is there is very contradictory. Many believe that it doesn't even exist. Some swear that it does, but was destroyed. Some terrible calamity. No, none of the papers really agree, but they all reference the same place.
And Fel would look to Eli and the others and just say, I feel like I might have read a few things, maybe an old scroll or two, maybe even an old tome that talks about a place called Barovia, but a lot of what I read in one scroll would contradict what I read in another. It was very confusing. We really need to organize that library a little better. And then she would look at Stanimir and just say, and she would lean forward, her eyes shining with interest, and she would just say, the shadows and the way they played and moved in the fire, was that magic? Are you some sort of spellcaster?
Spellcaster is way too much of a grand term.
I mean, you made shadows dance in fire. I think that's pretty grand. I mean, I can't do that. And then she looks at the others. I don't think any of them could do that. And then she looks at you, actually, specifically, Gilliwen, and says, I could be wrong, though. But still, I mean, it's impressive.
I just feel the energy is coming from the fire. When you feel that energy, when you feel it flow through you, you can ask it to change for you.
And Fel just nods slowly, like she totally understands this, but her eyes slowly move to the fire, and she's kind of like gazing at it with narrowed eyes, trying to make it show her what she wants to see, but I'm assuming it isn't working.
You will learn, young one. You have something within you.
Great. Oh, that's great. What about you three? And she'll look over to Oscar and the Everchild and Gilliwen. Have you heard of this Barovia place before? Maybe you've read something I haven't. Doubtful, but could happen.
Yeah, Oscar, what have you read about Barovia?
You see that Oscar is hardly listening. He seems to be inspecting some sort of inlay in one of the carts, perhaps. The travelers may have etched something into it. Maybe it was a teen marking his place, maybe a small design. Most of the conversation and the weight of what they were speaking of has gone over his head. He was only idly listening. I do not like this story. Tell me a different one.
Your friend seems to be very focused on our things and not what we say. I can tell you that Barovia is very real. It is surrounded by a dense fog and trees, so not many people go there.
Lewin. The violence of a man stirs not from anger. It stirs from lamentations of grief. Like a web of thick, thorny vines. If you cut it at the root, it all falls away.
Will, when it listens to this, sorry, go ahead.
We will show this man peace and confront him with his own lamentations.
Gleowin is very still behind you, as she always is, as she internally mask the dissatisfaction she is feeling right now. But there's another part of something inside of her that is lusting for whatever this mystery is, for whatever this tragedy is that's happened with this tyrant and this lord and this ruler. And so for a moment she is silent, and then she speaks up saying, "The Everchild would like to meet this man you call Lord."
Madam Eva has all of the answers that you would seek.
And with that, Everchild literally just stands up and walks to wherever he thinks this Madam Eva would be.
We will take you there, of course. She does not leave often, for she is well in her years. She cannot venture out anymore.
And I think Fel would stand up at this point, kind of, wiping some grass off of her breeches, holding the wineskin in one hand. I appreciate the offer and the story, of course, Stanimir, and the kind words. I don't think I should be, and she looks over her shoulder back to the lights of Daggerford. I don't think I should be going anywhere, but I'm sure these four, potentially looking to you, Eli, and to you as well, Oscar, since it seems like the Everchild and potentially Gilliwin will go. But I'm sure these four should be able to help you achieve whatever it is needs doing. Hopefully your lord's curse will soon be lifted. These are strange folk, and she smiles, but they're good folk, I think.
If you return without us, Lady Philippa, I believe your other cheek will be redder.
And she stops. The smile fades off her face, and she looks at you, Gilliwin, and says, "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear because of the mask. Could you say that again, please?"
In fact, I do think if you were to return without Duchess, precious guest, you would, I believe she said, disappear into the night because your head is in the clouds.
And Fel just goes very still, and she tilts her head to the side and says, "And how do you know that exactly? What exactly are you saying?" But you can tell that she knows exactly what you're talking about.
Perhaps you should stay the night. Talk to these people. Return later.
And Fel would look over her shoulder again at the distant flickering torchlights of Daggerford. And then she would look back to Gilliwin and then just say, "Maybe the night, but in the morning I should go back." Just the night.
I do not want to create any rifts, and I do apologize if my request is overbearing.
I mean, it's not every night that you stumble upon people celebrating, drinking, banging tambourines around, and then they ask you to go and lift a curse from their cursed lord. So yeah, I mean, it's a little unusual, but it's fine. Just one night should be fine.
I'm of a similar disposition. Oscar, I know you seem to, well, as long as I've known you, you've been a bit of a pragmatic individual. Pardon me, Oscar. You are one who is very practical in your thinking and your doing. But, well, in the time we've known one another, have I given you any cause to not trust me?
There was that. Well, if perhaps we speak of the time, no. You are a stout man. You have stout words. They make sense. You are grounded. But wait, this Barovia. I do not like the word. Do they need of grave tender? I can shape stone. I can make graves, coffins. Is there dead there?
There are many dead in
Ah.
Barovia.
Wonderful. I am looking for work.
Well, then it would seem as though the Rock Man, and I look at Fell, has been convinced as well, and my path has taken me this far, traveling only on a hunch and an invitation, which has very quickly led to this. So I'm in as well.
I mean, and she stops. She hesitates, her eyes flicking over to Gilliwin again for a moment before looking back to you, Eli. I mean, you all are free to do as you wish. You all seem very nice, but Daggerford is my home. I can't just leave it. I mean, I'm the Duke's daughter. I have responsibilities. I have, and she sort of trails off for a moment.
Are you saying you are not free?
Define free, I suppose.
I can walk here.
Actually, I'm probably asking the wrong person to define.
I can walk there.
Mm-hmm.
No one tells me what to do.
Right. But if you had a family or a place that you call home necessarily, you wouldn't go running off in the middle of the night to lift a curse necessarily. Would you? Maybe.
Well,
I do not lift curses, but I do bury the dead, and I do need work.
Right.
Do you have a job? You need a job?
No, not really. I read books and I know things, I suppose.
Oh, you are good with words. Yes. I
like
charge
to
by
think
the
so.
letter when I make gravestone. You would make good words for the gravestone.
I will take that under advisement. But how about for now? How about we compromise, right? And we all just go talk to Madame Eva, and we see what happens from there, right?
that sounds like a plan.
All right. And she looks to Stanimir. Lead on. Where did the Everchild go?
We're over here.
Oh, right.
Stanimir smiles. I knew you of kindness would help us out. Thank you. And yes, if Madame Eva has not the answers you want, or you decide differently, you are free to leave.
Excellent. Thank you, Stanimir. I appreciate that.
He kind of dips his head a little bit in kind of a bow, well, I think we have overstayed our visit. Shall we go? You can sleep in the back of our carts, and we will be there by mid-afternoon tomorrow.
Oh, well, wait. I thought Madame Eva was here somewhere. No, you said she doesn't travel, so she couldn't be here. About how far away is this place, did you say?
We should be there by tomorrow afternoon.
Oscar's gonna walk past Fell, tapping Eli on the shoulder. Did you hear? We can ride. We don't have to walk. This is good. And he will jump into the back of the nearest wagon.
Everchild has been kind of investigating each of the wagons in a kind of non-discreet manner that discreet manner that a halfling could pull off. And then Glaewin would hear, "It appears Madame Eva is not here."
She is not. We are to go on a journey and need to. Funny, I think it is. They say Barovia is some faraway place. It is only a day away, yet no one here has ever heard or seen it.
Our whole lives are but one grand day. At morning we rise, and at dusk we set.
And she gives you her familiar hum at that, and then kind of like looks out at the rest of you guys to see what the rest of you are doing.
I'm already, as Oscar's climbed up eagerly, I'm already holding my hand up for him to help me up into the back of the cart. And I pointedly scooch in, leaving enough room as I look down at Fel.
And I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't think I would say anything. I would just kind of look and maybe just kind of glance at the empty seat, look back at you, and just shrug.
And I think Fel would turn fully away, looking back at Daggerford again, and just kind of thinking about how difficult things have been over the years, you know, especially with her father not being present, especially the terrifying conversation that she had with her aunt after everyone else left. And she would just sort of mentally remind herself, you know, it's only a day's journey. You can always come back. You know, they said that you can always come back. And she would turn back to face you, Eli, smiling and say, right, well, guess, what is it, in for a copper, in for a pound, right? And then she kind of gets up besides you and sits in the wagon, her long legs kind of dangling off the side.
Oscar has set down what obviously is a giant bag full of bricks or stones, his tools, his shovels, a bunch of clanking metal. And he looks to Fel finally and laughs. Ha ha! Now you are free, yes. It is like my father once told me. Oscar, you are far too big. You eat too much. Go. And then I left.
Sounds like a great man, Oscar. Let's see what happens.
And so the other people here, they begin to pack up, but it seems as joyful as when they were dancing and singing. They're humming still. They clink the barrels in a rhythmic beat as they load them up. They make room for you so that you are extremely comfortable in this. And Stanimir gets into the wagon, or like the front of the wagon where he can drive the horses, and he looks back. Thank you, my friends. And he kind of turns back, clicks his tongue, and starts, and you can feel the carriage lurch and begin to move. And as it moves, the people begin to hum this sweet lullaby full of joy, slow but not lacking the joyous atmosphere that they had been giving this entire time. And you all feel your eyes begin to get heavy. And the next time you all open your eyes, the sun is hot overhead. Through the caravan, through the carriage, the sun bleeds through. You have slept through the morning, but you all feel extremely rested. The carriage has stopped. And if you were to look at the front, you would see that Stanimir is no longer there. And if you were to look out the front of the caravan, you would see this image. Huge gates with two figures standing on either end. And as you stare at this in awe, Stanimir comes to the back. Welcome, my friends, to Barovia. And that is where we're going to end. So,
Wow.
There we go. That, session 1, Curse of Strahd. So not too spooky, but, we'll get there.
I just want to go back and do a callback to the description you gave of the wine when Fell took the wine. That was just beautifully done. I saw everyone kind of nodding with appreciation at that. I wanted to make sure we drew attention to that the way you described that, as it was like taking all of their culture and the mirth and the joy and everything that we were seeing and bottling and distilling it. That I just thought that was amazing.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, that was it. So thank you everyone, and thank you to the players. This is making me very excited to to play on. And so this is a game that happens every other week. So not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, we'll be back for session 2. And so I will quickly let everyone introduce themselves and plug whatever you want, say whatever you want to say, and then we'll get out of here. So we'll start wherever my finger's pointing. Jason.
Hello, I am Jason Osorio, and I am playing Felitha Daggerford. And yeah, this is great. I have a very small YouTube channel, Concepts and Characters. It's mostly just live plays. And also, actually, recently, some friends of mine and we started doing a live play podcast called Flipping the Table. So check that out when you can. It's a lot of fun. And thank you, of course, to you, Megan. Great as always, and as well to everyone else playing. This is very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Thank you. We're gonna jump down to Jake.
Hey everybody, I'm Jake, also known as MTD Jake or Mini Terrain Domain. You can find me, and more often than not, accompanied by Megan, over on the Mini Terrain Domain Twitch channel. Also have a YouTube channel by the same name, where I run Wizards of the Coast modules or play in them. Connor, Megan, and Marquise are all in our Sunday night our Sunday night Jolt of Personality Tomb of Annihilation campaign. Megan's in the Monday night Waterdeep campaign, GM'd by Mike the Piper. And then returning this Thursday with our season premiere, Dawnbringers Season 2, The Forge of Fury. Megan is in that, along with some other amazing players. And I also do terrain crafting, miniature terrain, dice towers, dice trays, and we'll be doing more of that over on the YouTube channel. I'm playing Eli Lancaster, who is a sort of an atypical dwarf fighter. If you can't tell, I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption too, so I wanted to play more of a cowboy or that sort of bring that sort of aspect to a dwarf character, and I'm just loving playing. Like I said, I've played with Megan and Marquise and Connor. I think I've played with Jason before, but I'm not 100% positive. I know I've played.
It was the ICRPG game that Megan ran.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
The people who come after you.
But it's it's so there was that, and I also produced Marquise's the last 7 days Cryfoth over on my channel with everybody here. I was just the silent voice behind the production. So I'm so happy to be a part of this. I've run aspects of Curse of Strahd, and I couldn't ask for a better dungeon master or group of players.
Awesome, thank you. Then we'll just move quickly directly below me to Marquise.
I'm Marquise. I'm a dude. I got locks. I like it. It was a fun time. As you can see, I play Gleowin. She's a totally normal girl, just chilling, nothing strange or weird about her whatsoever. We just busting around here. Her and our homie Everchild, going the wrong way. There we go. We run in these streets, ear to the streets, making sure, Crip blood all stay straight, man. We trying to keep it good for our kids. So that's about it.
I think I understood like 1/3 of that.
All right. Thank you, Marquise. And then we're going to go across to Cameron.
Hello, I am Cameron. Nothing to plug. I am a reclusive hermit who lurks in the shadows and sometimes is encountered on one of these streams. I'm playing Oscar, the Goliath barbarian. As stereotypy as you can imagine, Although he is a gravedigger and a stoneworker, so hopefully those will come into play as we travel along in this amazing adventure that Megan has run for us so graciously. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And finally, my partner in crime, Connor.
Hey, I'm Connor. If you are on this channel watching this game, you probably know who I am. If not, then you have a bunch of other videos to watch, and you should get on that because that's your homework for the night. Of particular note, tomorrow at some approximate time in the evening, there's going to be part 2 of the what's it called? The Last Guardians, which is the game is going to be run by me this time, but it won't be always ran by me as we switch up the DM every single game. And so we get to just take the ball from each other and throw it in other people's courts and do some fun multi-DM shenanigans. And so this week will be mine, and everyone laughs at, I don't know, Marquise's face. And with that being said, I'm done talking.
All right, thank you. Yes, tune in tomorrow where Jake will be there, and Drake and Taylor Jeffrey, and it's going to be a fun time. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, and hope you enjoyed, and have a good night.
Satan